maybe cover a quick couple of news items today. I'm not going to pull out the neurotech I've been working on. I was just saying I'm kind of burned out on that stuff, so I'm taking a break from it. And I need to work on some administrative stuff for that. But I'll probably do the neurotech stuff later in the future, but it's in a box behind me right now. But yeah, I just want to talk about the Neuralink stuff today. And yeah, maybe like one or two other things. All right, so let's go back into the coffee shop. And yeah, the only other thing I'd said was I hadn't looked at any of this before I got on. I just kind of wanted to read this live on stream, give, reaction more, I don't know, less, I don't know, processed of reaction or whatever. So yeah, so I don't know if you saw this. They had a monkey playing a video game. I have no idea what the details are, so I was gonna hope to see what the details are live with you, along with you guys. Oh, is the YouTube? Okay, the YouTube's working. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's different delays. I don't know. Anyway, okay, so yeah, my first reaction to this in terms of having brain implants in monkeys and them controlling things is that we had this 20 years ago, which some of you might have known, some of you, maybe that surprises you. I worked next to labs that had brain implant monkeys and larger monkeys than this. They had, I always forget the difference between, chimps and gorillas and all that, but Berkeley had labs like this, UCSF had labs like this. Actually, one of the professors I worked right next to is a consultant for this, for Neuralink. What's his name? Flip Savies. So he definitely had labs with this stuff working. Anyway, so it's hard to know. My first assumption is when they say it's been wired up to play video games, it's probably just some simple like 2-button thing, where it can click one or the other. It's probably not like a 2-joystick thing that it's doing with its brain. So maybe it's the cynic in me, but this seems very underwhelming. But we'll see. We'll see. Also, keep in mind, maybe they did it in a way that was easier to set up. Maybe it was a smaller kind of fingerprint on the brain, or a smaller surgical hole and things like that. So those are all great improvements. I think the thing I'm going to stress over and over with Elon Musk's company is that what it appears to me to be is that they're not really going to solve the neural code problem. They're so far down the chain. They're just going to provide better hardware, if that makes any sense. So it's sort of shaping up to look like a medical device company. That's what it seems to me. And we'll get into that later, but you can kind of tell when you look at their job descriptions and stuff like that. Anyway, so they're highlighting the fact that the monkey doesn't seem to have any too much distress or anything. That it was a very non-traumatic procedure. That's cool. You can see where the neural implant was put in, except he's got a slightly dark mohawk. I assume that means the part they had to shave. It's like a reverse mohawk, I'm assuming. Okay, oh, yeah, he became the richest person. Is the chimp reacting to where the eye attention is? I don't know. I'm hoping to see what they did. I don't know if it doesn't look like they published anything, so I'm hoping that, well, it'd be great if they came up with a publication, but a video or anything. So I'm just going to pull up whatever they got and see if we can infer what they probably did in detail. I see. You're yeah, it's unlikely that they're, if you're trying to reference some of the stuff I've talked about, which is nice, somebody's listening. It's unlikely they're doing that stuff. It's more it involves training where it doesn't really matter what you're looking at, or they're probably implanting in more of a motor part of your brain where it really doesn't matter what you're up to. So it's more that you learn to have two distinct thoughts, but even that sounds sensational. It's really just lateralizing activity. So it's really, if you move like your entire right side of your body, the left motor cortex becomes very active. And then if you move the entire left side of your body, the right side of your motor becomes active. And if you have sensors in both positions and you can see which one is greater than the other, you can kind of have like a 2-button input without having to physically push a button. And then over time, you can learn to do this without actually doing this. You can just learn to like keep your arm still, but activate all that activity. And that's really what it is. And that's why this stuff doesn't seem that great to me, because it requires a lot of training. So with a monkey, what you can do is you can do the same thing. You could train them, and you can train them like marshmallows or whatever, just similar to humans, like sugar or anything. And you train them to do a very simple task where like some black and white screen, things pop up, and whenever something pops up on this side, they have to push a button. Whenever something pops up on that side, they push the other button. And then over time, you actually almost like handcuff their hands down so they can't move it. And with the implants, they learn over time that they actually don't have to move their arms. They just, they learn to somewhat unconsciously, somewhat consciously, kind of, it's a little, in one way, you could think of it's more lazy because you're not moving your arms. On the other hand, it's unnatural because you're activating your motor cortex, and then you're also activating inhibition of it, so you don't actually move your muscles. But you're still activating the premotor cortex. Cool. Is it limited to binary? Yeah. This is my guess. I can't imagine why they would do something more complicated, because that would be the first step to do. But in the media, they're not going to highlight that. So it's probably weeks of training. Maybe it's less now. Maybe they've figured out algorithms that can adapt to the brain faster in the research community, and Neuralink took some of those. But it's usually weeks of training, and then it's usually like a binary button thing. It's usually, a couple seconds between trials, sometimes a second. Monkeys are weirdly good at some visual tasks, like visual tasks meaning something pops up on the screen, you push a button. Sometimes they're better they can hit ceilings that are higher than humans, which is weird. I can't think of it right now. I don't want to misspeak, but there's like a task where they outperform humans actually. So yeah, they do that with marshmallows. They restrain their hands and arms, and so I'm guessing that's what it is. But I'm hopefully able to see some videos, and sometimes they have little clips of videos, and you can pause it and kind of see what they're doing. So hopefully we'll do that today. So yeah, I'm just looking at this article. Yeah, they talk about his other stuff he's worked on, like his AI lab and stuff. They're talking about the potential of having a direct neural interface. Can you see on the screen? This is like a sort of a primary motivator. It's talking about many orders of magnitude, 1,000 being 3 orders of magnitude, 10,000 being 4 orders of magnitude. With a direct neural interface, you can improve the bandwidth between your brain essentially and some sort of digital device by many orders of magnitude. Is all they're saying. Right. Well, maybe not correct. I mean, this is where most things in the literature where we do with monkeys and humans is, as you said, binary. Or maybe we're able to extend it to a few options. So we haven't demonstrated this, but to argue for this, the way Elon Musk is spending money, what he's doing might be the right thing to do, which is to first try to miniaturize it, make it more usable. They like saying the word form factor, but it just basically means you have something that's smaller. You can imagine like, how clunky like computers were back in the day, or calculators or anything like that, where you'd have a dedicated like I don't know if you guys ever like a TI-89 or TI-83 those big graphing calculators, and now you can do the same thing on a phone, or even, eventually probably the Apple Watches will have enough computing power. I don't know, but the idea of just things being smaller, and then the user, not necessarily the user interface, but in this case, the people who would be using this device, like the people who would be either implanting this device, like surgeons, or maybe technicians that would be helping you calibrate or whatever was required. So the idea that the user interface to them, those intermediate workers, get a little better. So that's what people usually mean by form factor in engineering. And so him working on that might be that incremental step that actually is the right thing to do. As much as I usually criticize it, that is the argument, and I think that there's a lot of logic to that. Yeah, we'll look at this video for sure. I think that's the video I pulled up, right? And then I just want to see if there's any other information in this thing. This is the end of the article. The cortex is the part of the brain that plays a key role in memory, attention, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, so this is where long-term says it could allow humans to send concepts to one another using telepathy, exist in a saved state after they die, yada, yada. So that is crazy, because that's the stuff that gets communicated, and we're talking about binary control after weeks of training. In order to do something like this, like for instance the concept thing, let's just take that as an example. And I this is probably part of his vision. You'd have to cover so much of the cortex and have these invasive essentially metal detectors or whatever they are. Maybe they're carbon fiber at this point. I actually don't know. There's something that supposedly causes the least amount of sclerosing, they call it, which is just like scar tissue buildup in your brain around these sensors, which is your brain does naturally, which is cool, because like if you get a parasite in your brain, I actually when I used to be in medicine, I had 2 different patients who got something called neurocysticercosis, which is pig parasites. So if you eat raw fish, you can get parasites. If you eat raw pork, you can get parasites. And the pork ones are more dangerous because they can actually travel to your brain. And what's interesting, or maybe it's horrifying, I don't know, but it's interesting, or it's better than nothing, is that your body, or including your brain, will naturally form scar tissue around these parasites. So it sort of kind of forms like a little jail cell or something. It's just pure collagen, like a sphere of collagen around the parasite, and then that collagen gets more and more kind of dehydrated over time and tougher. And then, so when you scan somebody, you sometimes see a couple of these, like I did a few times in medicine. And, if possible, you give them drugs that will kill the parasite inside, although you want them to die in a way where they just die and they shrivel up. You don't want them to explode in lice, because that will cause an immune reaction. And sometimes if you have to go in there surgically, but you try to avoid cracking open the brain always in medicine. So that the same thing can kind of happen when you insert probes or sensors or anything into the brain as well, because your body's very good at identifying things that are foreign, or it's reasonably good. Maybe we'll be better and better at tricking it in the future. So. And it primarily does that by, I don't know how interesting it is. I'm just remembering some of the stuff as I say it out loud. It does that by like ionic differences. A lot of your tissue, I don't remember anymore, is either like negatively charged, and because there's a lot of like chloride and other ions, or and there's also sodium and potassium, which are positively charged. Anyway, I forget which one it is. It has a slight charge to it. There's a difference, and so that's primarily one thing, and then also by surface proteins and stuff like that. So it's not that we can't eventually figure out ways to trick the brain, which technologically would be advantageous for us or good for us, because we could maybe put in tons of sensors and not have the brain forming scar tissue all around these things. Partly because it degrades the ability for the sensor to detect things. And then maybe, it's not so good for our brain to have all that scar tissue, but it might be fine with it. Who knows? Anyway, the idea of even capturing concepts and sending it to it. This is my biggest pet peeve with him, because he does this tortured genius act in public. Like, he goes on Rogan, he has like this tortured genius, and I don't know, I have so many thoughts in my brain and I can't even get it out, and the human language isn't sophisticated enough for my thinking, and maybe I'm an alien, that kind of thing. And then he ties it into this stuff and it's just like, that's not how the brain works. If you have prototypical thoughts or concepts that aren't articulated, then that's all they are. That's why you have to write or speak. You have to practice these things, because that formulates them, that adds the context and details. And if you haven't done that yet, then in specificity is where it actually gets more detailed and interesting. And the process of going from the proto concept to the specific concept is everything about intelligence. So anyway, but yeah, it's hard because these concepts in your brain, they're say broad generalizations or categorizations. Concepts mean a lot of things in our language, but say that's what we're talking about. It can exist across a network, say in your parietal regions mostly. So you'd have to cover and infiltrate a lot of the parietal cortex. Anyway, yeah, and then the whole save state after you die thing, I'm sure you guys, I think sci-fi covers that pretty well. The whole philosophical concept of, if you replicate something that looks very, very, and acts very similar to you, is it you, and do you still die, and how much do you care if you're dead and the other thing thinks it's you, and all that stuff. But anyway, okay, so this is near the end of the article. Quadriplegics have brain and spinal injury so that they can control. Yeah, and they have this already in humans. They did this 15-20 years ago, famously with I don't remember the guy's name, but John Donahue, I don't remember his name. But yeah, they did this, I think at Brown University or something, almost 20 years ago. So I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get through these animal trials so that they can get an FDA approved device, and that when people get these implants in the hospital for, especially these really, though it's for the worst cases. It's for like absolute paraplegia. And it becomes a quality of life issue, because all they can do is often move their eyes or something. And if these guys can be the premier device and replace the existing whatever's out there right now, which is cool. I mean, it's sort of a modernization of something, but in a lot of ways, a lot of this stuff is kind of figured out. They're just trying to modernize it in any way they can. And I see a lot of Fitbit. Yeah, here's the end of the article. Yeah, see right here at the end. If someone is good at designing Fitbit, Apple Watches, phones, let me make sure it's on the screen. Yeah, of various kinds, then they would be a great fit for Neuralink. So let's look at this job link, and then let's look at let's also look at. Oh, it's just this video. Okay, I already pulled up this video. Okay. You know what? Let's also look at Neuralink's job career page, because I told you this is the move. Because you can see what their priorities are whenever you look at a career page. It's very simple. If you ever work in investing, if you ever have to do an audit on a company, I don't know. If you're just a journalist and you're curious, it's not loading up. Okay, there it goes. So right, they got animal, vet stuff. That's cool. And if you guys are interested, apparently they're in the Bay Area and Austin. So just like they're sponsoring me. Okay. Yeah. So they have electrical engineering, embedded systems firmware engineer. So they're trying to make the onboard chips. Equipment engineer. I don't know what that is. I might just look at the description really fast. general application, manufacturing technician, senior electrical engineer, software engineer, for probably lab software or something like that. A robotic electrical engineer. Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of engineers. Again, which is cool. That's, at some point you want to stop doing science and you want to like build stuff. So that's part of the philosophical difference, I suppose, between the richest guy in the world who actually, maybe is a little overhyped in what he's accomplished, but he has modernized a few things, which is good, which is very, very cool. And myself, who's basically just, a mediocre scientist at best. So, head of construction, histology technician. Oh, they do have a neuroengineer. I'm curious what that job description looks like. Infrastructure. So yeah, it's all very industry stuff. Software engineer would be, man, I'm gonna have to look at these things. So they have an equipment engineer at Neuralink. I clicked on this one because I actually didn't know what this was. I was like, what do they mean by this? Blah blah blah. You're it's like what job description would be like? You lack passion. You hate working with other people. They always say the same stuff. So anyway, key qualifications. Okay, pneumatic, mechanical, and electrical repair. I wondered, this is probably for the surgical device that's going to implant the chips. I'm guessing that because I don't know why you would need pneumatics. What's a neuroengineer? I'm gonna get to that. Yeah, that's one of them I pulled up. Oh yeah, you can't see my tabs, but I pulled up 4 of them. So that's the last one. I definitely want to look at that one too. I was curious what they meant by equipment engineer. Semiconductor processing. Oh yeah, you guys probably can't read that. Let me blow it up a little bit. Sorry guys. There we go. Semiconductors, programables, vacuum pumps, gas delivery systems, robotic systems. Yeah, so this is, oops, there it is. So it's, yeah, I think it's for the robotics that implant. They have these, maybe we'll see it in the video. They have these robotic devices. They don't use their hands anymore. They use these robot devices to do surgery, like if you do minimally invasive surgery. So if you get your gallbladder out at like a tier 1 university hospital now, you may very well get it done minimally invasively, laparoscopically, which means, so the old way, which I used to do too, you slice the person open around the liver, and big enough to like, you can stick your hands in there and you can separate everything out and you find the gallbladder and you clip it and you ligate it and you close everything up. Then they came out with minimally invasive, which you ended up, this is so long ago, you put 2 or 3 ports, I don't remember, but you put 3 holes in the abdomen, and you're using tools, not robots, and then you separate out all the, because you have all this connective tissue that in the abdomen, so you separate that out with like something metal, not something sharp, but something metal is enough to separate it, and then you put some gas in there and you expand it, and then you have a camera, you have like a pincher tool, and then maybe you have a cutter tool, and so you pinch things, you cut things, you change it out, you put a little ligating tool, and you have a camera, and you're doing this all with your arms and hands, and like a couple people doing it. And I did it that way too. And then right as I was, last time I probably did a surgical rotation was 2008. They were coming out with the Da Vinci robots, and I got to use those too, just once or twice. They were experimenting with them at Madison, which is where I went to med school, and that you just sit at there's these like binoculars, and you put your face on it. And they're 3D because they're giving you different images into every eye, different eyes. You have stereoscopic, and you put your hands underneath into these there's these little rings, and you put your fingertips into them, and you can move it, and then and that controls the robot arms. And so you're just looking and doing this, and then the patient's like a couple feet over, and it was this giant machine. I don't know if it's that big anymore, but and it was it was kind of back then it was kind of awful because it took hours to set up, and the surgery itself normally would take maybe an hour or 45 minutes to do normally. And it took hours because you had to park this giant machine that was like lifted up by industrial equipment over the patient that was, under anesthesia. And that's all bad too, because you want to minimize people's time under anesthesia. But it was experimental at the time, so I assume they've gotten it better than that. But that was the last time that's the state I saw it in. And at the time it was Da Vinci it was called, and I think there's probably other competitors now. So anyway, my point being that they're probably developing something similar to that. So they're developing the tools to implant it as well as the device. And then my other point being, they're probably not working on like the neural signal problem much at all. They're probably just importing whatever the universities have at this point and just leaving it as is, even though he talks about it as if that's what they're mostly doing. That's my take on it. So yeah, that's why they have all this pneumatic gas delivery systems. Oh, you can't see that. Pneumatic gas and delivery systems. I assume because they're building like a Da Vinci. That's my take on it. All right, we'll get off this job description in a second. CAD and okay, cool. I just didn't know what an equipment engineer was. So okay. All right, let's get out of this one. Let's go to the next one. Let me pull this down a little bit. Okay. I was curious. This one says general. Maybe. Oh, I see. It's just an open one. So if you, for some reason, want to apply and you don't fit in these categories, they just give you a button to push, and maybe somebody looks at it. Yeah. Interesting. I wonder how open a company's like that too. I wonder what would happen if I had applied to the general. Just like, oh, I have all these degrees and experience, but I'm not actually an electrical engineer. I'm not actually useful for the work you guys are doing. All right, let's on to the neuroengineer. And then what's the last one? The BMI one. Okay, let's do these two. All right, because I guess a lot of my audience might be more in these categories. I don't know. Although I don't know how many of you are actual engineers and how many of you just got science degrees like I did. So anyway, all right, let's get past the fluff. Right. Evidence, exceptional ability in neuroscience, biomedical engineering, scientific method, engineering first principles, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Proficiency in Python. Yeah, these things are always written so broadly though. They're they'd rather not scare people away than, and waste your time as an applicant rather than, C++. I did C++. Huh. It's been a while, but I programmed a video game in C++. Experience building and programming experimental instrumentation. Interesting. I wonder what instrumentation. It's probably just scripting anyway, so I guess if you're Python or something scripting related, that's probably good enough. Microscopy and optics. I wonder why. That's weird. I don't know. Stats and machine learning, in vivo electrophysiology, wake behavioral recordings. So it's interesting because they're, at this level, this is more for people who work in like rat labs, or I guess there's people who work directly on direct human recordings too, but he believes people can learn everything without college. Yeah, it's interesting though, because most people, I used to live in LA, and everybody I ran into who worked at SpaceX were all engineers from good schools. So I think it's a little bit of a bullshit on his part again. He hires a lot of American educated engineers, so it's not actually how he acts, but I know he says that primarily because he was going to go to grad school or whatever, and never did that, which, how do I say this? It's so bad because I feel like I'm reacting to the hype about him, and then I sound very negative. And I really love entrepreneurial people think out of the box, all that stuff. It's just the hype about him is that like he did it all on his own. And when you read the biography about him, not the autobiography, I found it really fascinating because He moved to the United States with his brother, and his brother and him. So first of all, he had a sibling who was insanely dedicated too, and they were both working like 80 hours a week on this thing. Their dad, his dad, he doesn't even talk to, who has a really terrible relationship, gave him like $50,000 or $60,000. I didn't come from a family that could do anything like that. I don't think my family would give me, $500. And to give a shot at the company. On top of it, his mom moved from South Africa to San Francisco and was just like around supporting them emotionally. They don't cover any of this stuff. Like, he benefited from an insanely supportive family along with a brother who is technically competent and willing to also go all in with him. And the whole solar panel stuff are two cousins of his that are also, business savvy, willing to do this stuff at some level of middle class where they can risk trying this stuff and they don't have to go after the more guaranteed paths. So his view is a little warped because it sounds like they were pretty upper middle class in South Africa. And I'm just saying you can't take what he's saying directly and apply it to your life necessarily, because maybe that's not your situation. Every time I try to do anything, I email out, my very weak social network, my friends, and nobody's gonna go in with me on anything. They're all working very average jobs, and they're not gonna risk their lives even to quit for 6 months to try to work on something with me. I don't have a network like that. I don't have any siblings like that would do that. So I don't know. I'm just saying there's a little take it with a little salt. Take the advice with a little salt. Take it with a caveat. So anyway, I just found it interesting. When I read the book. So again, I think he's a very special person. I'm glad people like him and him in particular exist. I'm glad that the richest person in the world is working on rockets and brain stuff, and it's all good. I just think they try to strip away some of the advantages he might have had to make the story seem even more sensational. And that's fine if you're just looking to be entertained or inspired, but then you go to the next step of trying to take lessons from that, and you might find yourself frustrated because maybe you're just lucky to be in college right now, and maybe you're just lucky to be getting through your degree, and maybe getting a decent paying job is going to be a huge victory for you. Like they don't emphasize that stuff, and a lot of people I know, that is their situation. Some of the guys I graduated with PhDs from Berkeley with, it took them a year to find a job, and now they have a job. They're not gonna risk it. They're not gonna look for other. They're not gonna throw the dice or anything. So I don't know. These things don't get they get de-emphasized for the sake of the inspiring and more entertaining narratives. So which is fine again, but I think the problem is most people start trying to apply it to their own life, and maybe that's just me, but that's what I try to do, and I end up getting frustrated sometimes. So anyway, sorry guys, I went on a ramble there. We're looking at neuroengineer at Neuralink. So microscopy, optics, modern statistical inference, and machine learning. So the in vivo stuff, that makes sense. The thing that confused me here is the microscopy and optics, but everything else makes sense to me. And then behavioral paradigms in animal models. So they're going to be working with animals for a long time. And there's a lot of job stuff where they want vets and animal handlers and stuff like that. So that makes sense. And they have to get past what they probably need to do right now. What they're working on is preparing a phase 0 report for the FDA. So phase 0 is usually animal studies, whether you're dealing with pharmaceuticals, and that's really like safety and toxicity, as well as beneficial effects you anticipate. So, and then prior to that with pharmaceuticals, often it's like they're working with cell cultures, right? And then phase 0 is usually animals. And then phase 3 is the big studies you usually see. That's where the stock market and Wall Street go crazy, because they have a giant 20,000 person phase 3 for drug trials. And that's where they're trying to prove it's better than some either status quo or whatever standard out there, and also, as well as continue to prove that the side effects or dangers of it are worth the benefits, or anyway. So then phase 2 and phase 1 are like the smaller ones. So phase 1 often is just looking at safety issues in humans, and they're not even looking at the benefits. Although if you're running a company, whether a farms company or this company, you may want to like collect that data and kind of make sure that that's working too. But phase 1 usually in FDA trials is just safety. So phase 0 is the data you get in animals to submit to the FDA to tell them you're going to do a phase 1, and you're like, this is why we have a reason to believe it does collect, in this case, usable signal, and it's safe. And you have all these animal studies, and then you have a panel of engineers, physicians, other people at the FDA who look at that and kind of hear your thesis, see your data, and then they say, okay, go ahead. And they're what they're doing is they're proving the study, the phase 1 or the phase 2 or 3, and sometimes there's phase 4s even, but those are like big follow-up studies. But anyway, but they're approving your study design so that when you spend all this money and you do it, they're making sure that the results are going to be acceptable. So they're sort of pre-approving your study design so you don't waste a bunch of money. So they don't have you like run a study and then come to them for the first time and they're like, you didn't collect this, because these the human studies are insanely expensive. They're generally 30 to 50 grand a person. So if you want to collect on like 40 people, that's $2 million. You want to collect on 400 people, that's $20 million. So these things are very expensive, and a lot of it's because just the sheer amount of administration required. You have to hire a bunch of people. You have to have research nurses full time on site. You might have to have multiple sites to get that many people. You can't just have you can't just be at Duke and expect to get, or Harvard or wherever, and expect to get that many people. You often have to have many sites across the country, which means you have to have people employed across the country. So it's expensive, and they did try to innovate or update this 10, 20 years ago. They were trying to do a lot of studies in like India and stuff, places that were cheaper, just had a cheaper cost of living, and they had a lot of problems with bad trials. So there's a lot of private organizations, and some of them still exist. They're called CROs, clinical research organizations. So anyway, they have to deal with that after that. But right now they're just trying to get animal data, so that's why they're doing this. Anyway, guys, you guys are probably just more interested in what the neuroengineer thing is. So there you go. Yeah, no Python. They'd like it if you know C++. I don't know. I'm confused about the microscopy and optics, so I'm going to keep that in mind. Maybe as we look at the video. So anyway, last one I pulled up was the BMI applications, so brain machine interfacing applications, and they want a software engineer, so they probably want somebody with C++ for this, because Python's like a good kind of prototyping software, but you don't want to generally run software on Python. You want to C++ has more efficient libraries and yeah. So experience coding in C++, Python, or Swift. Yeah, I actually don't know. I've never used Swift. I'm not familiar with that, but reacts with real-time systems. So that's like what I was trying to do. You guys saw my disaster tech project. I was trying to interact with the eye tracker and the EEG thing in real time, but what I programmed is not industry quality. It works, but barely. Yeah, so they just want a programmer, and they're saying that like you're going to be working on BMI stuff, but you're probably going to be handed the designs and stuff here, and you just have to make it. Yeah, and that's why you have to be good at communicating with neuroscientists stuff. Okay, so that one's a little less interesting because yeah, you just need to be a software engineer and want to work on this stuff, which I can't imagine they have a hard time finding people like that. I know his companies tend to underpay though, because they give out equity, and they assume the equity is gonna blow up. So, but that is a problem because I remember people in LA not making great money at SpaceX and working there for many years and working pretty hard too. And you can go to these companies that pay way better, and they're a lot less grueling too. So that is part of the reason because every time he gives an announcement, he's like trying to recruit, obviously, which is a primary function of the CEO. But all right, guys, let's pull up the video. I'm just seeing. Oh yeah, see here. No prior experience in neuroscience is necessary. Okay. Yeah, but they're building the robotics. All right, let's pull up the video. Okay, cool. Let's make sure the video's in this frame. All right.
Is to be able to manipulate these threads and insert them into the brain. So the implant is kind of like this little puck.
Let me try again. Sorry, it doesn't sound that loud to me. Let me turn down the music.
First and like most immediate need for a robot is to be able to manipulate these threads and insert them into the brain.
So the implant is kind of like this little puck of the secret sauce active electronics and the.
Okay, so I'm just pausing it. Oh. Is there feedback? Sorry. If there's feedback, I'm sorry. I hear feedback. Oh. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, I killed it. Yeah, okay, so that's the size of the device. That's impressive. That's cool.
Electrodes are these tiny little flexible threads that each at the very end have.
Oh yeah, those are the threads. That's cool.
Multiple little electrodes that if you get those electrodes next to a neuron, they can record what that neuron is doing.
The nature of the device that we're implanting and the way that we're implanting it allows for minimal reaction of the brain tissue to our device to increase the lifetime. In order to do that, the devices are extremely fragile.
The threads that we insert that contain the electrodes are tiny, sort of on the order of like 50 microns wide, 5 microns thick, 20 millimeters long. And so
Wow. Yeah, so I have no idea. I'm not a great material sciences guy, but I wonder if they're using like carbon. Maybe they're using all the what's that nano stuff called? All the carbon filament stuff. Maybe they finally got all that working in mass production enough that they can actually print filaments now, like the graphene and all that stuff. I don't know.
If you take one of them and sort of toss it into the air,
Because that stuff is biologically inert, in supposedly in theory. I mean, you don't know until you try it, but I mean, they have tried out these materials. But anyway,
sort of float off like a piece of hair.
And those tiny little flexible hairs are too small for a human to handle, even like with tweezers, and that's where the robot comes in.
Computer vision and software, essentially high reliability software, is really important. We've gone from not really being able to track the moving brain, which is critical for humans because the human brain moves a lot, to...
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, that's really cool. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that when you take the skull off and you look at the brain actually pulses because your heartbeat. And usually, like the only things I've seen or been involved with is cancer surgeries where you're just removing a part of the brain, or epilepsy surgery. And usually it's sort of a very gross level, meaning large, meaning not fine. Although, I mean, we think of it as fine as humans because, we're like ultra careful around the brain, but we can't be as precise or minute as these robots are. So, yeah, it's interesting because it does this pulsing thing. And I guess the robots and software and everything, they can eventually make stuff to compensate for that. That's crazy. That's cool. Yeah, generally you're trying to, you look at MRIs, images, and then you try to figure out an approach that goes through, because a lot of times you have to go through brain tissue. So you're trying to go through either the least amount of brain tissue or brain tissue that you think is the least consequential. And then they will do these mapping studies to zap different parts of your brain to see what's happening. And that's why sometimes they have to do these things while you're awake, so that they can see if you suddenly can't speak or something. When they zap something, then they're like, okay, we're not going to go through that, because if we do that and then wake you up, you're not going to be able to speak. So there's these really horrifying outcomes that are possible with brain surgery. So that's why they do the mapping stuff, and a lot of our neuroscience data can come from that stuff too. So anyway,
having this OCT-based system that essentially gives us this 21 hertz real-time view of a 3D volume of the brain that we're looking at. What you're trying to do is like very fine computer.
Did he say 21 hertz? I didn't follow
the
that.
brain, which is critical for humans because the human brain moves a lot, to having this OCT-based system that essentially gives us this 21 hertz real-time view of a 3D volume of the brain that we're looking at. What you're trying to do is like very fine computer vision tasks and movement tasks to grab these threads. It's like an extremely hard engineering problem.
I would say the next big goal for the robot would be to make it so that there's minimal neurosurgeon interface, that a neurosurgeon can walk in and talk to the patient, make them feel comfortable about the procedure, walk them through exactly what's going to happen, and then essentially click go. And the robot will be able to figure out exactly what the specific topography of the patient will be, target the areas, and take the surgery from the patient coming in and sitting down to them walking out of the door that same day.
If we make this so automated and safe and fast that like anyone can get it, even the idea of really fast keyboard and mouse for myself that I don't need to use my hands for is like super alluring.
I'm excited for the robot to help a human patient restore someone's motor function that they lost. That would be super cool. Over the last 3 years, Neuralink has felt like it has grown from a garage project into a real product.
Not only do you get to work on robots, but you also get to interact with other people who don't typically.
I guess I'm trying to think of the restore motor function thing. I mean, maybe we can. I mean, there might be like a crappy patch around solution, like in the sense of we were talking earlier, like how the monkey has binary control without moving its arms, and then eventually you can develop that to higher level control. And then if that maps to like a robot arm or maps to, like needles in your muscles that basically zap your muscles and cause them to contract. There's these like hackish workarounds that they probably are talking about, and then they'll try to develop and refine those over time. But see, when they say restore XYZ neural function, I always think, and I don't know how many people think this too, that they're going to replace damaged brain tissue with like working brain tissue. I think that's what most people think, and that's even what I think. And that's where I shake my head like, no, this isn't going to do that. Because he talks about, solving neural disease like Parkinson's and things like that. And, well, I mean, that one we even have a hackish solution where, because there's just that one's a weirdly simple one where just a single cluster of cells die, and then, so we can just shove a needle in there and try to zap it. But even that doesn't work as great as just having working cells. So I always hear this stuff and think, oh yeah, there's a guy at USC, his name was Theodore Berger, and he probably worked on this stuff maybe 15 years ago, and I think he's like a chancellor now or something. I think he does research anymore, but he was trying to replace damaged hippocampus with a computer chip. And it was this ridiculously ambitious project. But I think a lot of people think like that. I think like that. So when I hear stuff like that, I don't understand what, this is. This might be like such a downstream necessary link. It's like we're working on transistors in the 1940s or whatever. And eventually in the 80s, we get the Apple II GS, which required hundreds of thousands of transistors, for instance. So, but then this is all buried in the context of, in 5 to 10 years, that level of hype that Elon Musk pushes out there, like we'll be tweeting each other in like 10 years. That thing he does, and it's like, anyway. But I'm not to say that there's not ways you can work around damaged motor function and that this might help. But anyway, I don't know. It sounds like I'm being semantic, but it just kind of restore motor function. I'm not trying to just be critical. I just think it creates a visual in your brain that's very inaccurate. That's all. So anyway.
We'll use robots.
I knew nothing about neurosurgery before coming to Neuralink. I can come in as a robotics expert and know that there are neurosurgeons here, neuroscientists here, who essentially can act as my knowledge base for neurosurgery.
Wait, I want to see who they shot for the
There are
neuroscientist.
neurosurgeons here, neuroscientists.
No, I can't. I don't know who that is.
Who essentially can act as my like knowledge base for neurosurgery and neuroscience. That's why I think it's the place to be.
Let's see. So it's cool because they have an OR there. I mean, there's an animal in that OR, but that's a pretty good recreation of an OR. I mean, you know, they got like back here, they might either have imaging, like brain imaging, so that because the surgeons sometimes want to walk over and look at the brain imaging. There's also usually at the head of the bed there's an anesthesia station, and so then there's a bunch of controls for the gases and chemicals you use. So there's IV drips, and then there's also the gas that you use, some kind of something AIM, usually like isoflurane for animals. I don't remember all of them anymore, but you know, and those are to initiate anesthesia, and then you use the IV to maintain anesthesia, and you intubate because often you knock them out so bad that they're not breathing on their own, so you intubate and stuff like that, and then you watch their oxygen levels and everything. So this is all the head of the station is usually run by the anesthesiologist, and the anesthesiologist is sort of like has veto power, but they're not in charge. So then the surgeon's in charge, but if the anesthesiologist is like, hey, you know, and then the anesthesiologist also handles pain management. So what we do with humans is we monitor their vitals, and I've done a few anesthesiology rotations that when you see somebody's vitals start going up, it's like a stress reaction. Even though they're knocked out, it's like some more subconscious level, you can tell that they're feeling pain. So then often you increase the whatever the pain management drug is, so some sort of opioid or whatever, and that's how they titrate it. You know, so they see you know, when the surgeons start digging in there and they see the vitals start going up a little bit, they're like, oh, you know, and then they kind of increase it. You know, and then we have very basic like consciousness, like are you unconscious level stuff, and they do, you know, I mean, you after a while you just everyone kind of reacts the same. They just sort of slump and you're like, yeah, they're out. But yeah, so that's what the head is. And then back in the day when we had the Da Vinci, this thing was like 6 times bigger. It was just hot, just sprawling over the bed on both sides. It was just a huge thing. It required this giant arm. So that's cool. Yeah, and then the surgeons usually stand on one side and sometimes the other side. There's usually technicians, surgical ORs, and then there's sometimes somebody in the back. And then when you walk in, you scrub in, you walk in, and then these people help you get into your gown and everything because you walk in like this once you scrub in, and you have to back into the door so you don't use your hands to open the door. And then they often have gloves open for you, and you just put your hands in, and then you get into the gown, and then you double glove again usually, and then you know, and you already put on your mask and your hair cap before you walked in. So that's what you usually do, and they teach you like a 5-minute scrub-in procedure. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I don't know if this is in Austin or the Bay Area, but that they have all this stuff in-house. I mean, that's pretty cool. He just like, well, let's just do it. Let's get everything in-house. And I guess a lot of medical device companies must do this too, the medical device companies that have been around for a long time. But yeah, I realize that they're manufacturing a lot of surgical equipment. So yeah, that was the end of the video. Okay, guys. Well, yeah, I just wanted to check it out because I was interested in what they were up to. Let's see if we can find game animal. I'm just wondering if we have any more details on the paradigm itself. Oh, was he on a live stream somewhere? Wow. It's like an audio only a live stream if you're interested, like hour and a half. I don't know. He's apparently everyone's spamming Dogecoin, you know, that whole thing. Yeah, so he revealed it right here. He said, "Can monkeys play mind pong with each other?" So they're playing pong. So it's 2-dimensional. So it's not necessarily. It's rather it's 1-dimensional, but it's not necessarily discrete, so it's continuous. So it's a little better than binary. Which isn't that's not really an advance compared to what they can do in the university systems. But I'm just saying that it is a one-dimensional control. So you're extracting levels of which, say, the right hemisphere or left hemisphere is activating, rather than just a discrete which one's greater. But it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, that's what you would use at first to prove that it's working. Yeah, it's funny. That's what he said last year, right? Human trials later this year. That's so aggressive. I mean, again, if they can produce the phase 0 data for the phase 1, they can do safety trials in humans potentially. These people are probably not going to be contacted directly by the company. They're probably going to be dealing with tier 1 academic systems that, and then people in the academic system, like doctors or whatever, that are also professors who want to work with Neuralink stuff, because it makes them look cool, and then they can get grant money and press and, stuff like that. And when they bring in more press, the university, that's all the university cares about. And then the university, they get higher up in the university status. And so that's how it'll kind of go down. You can play video games. Yeah. So they're probably talking about Pong. It's this black and white. You guys seen that, right? It's just a moving paddle, and then you're trying to bounce the little moving dot back that moves like a bouncing ball or whatever. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, again, and then I think they'll if they get things with a smaller footprint in humans. Let me turn the music back on. Sorry guys, I had that turned up because that video was kind of quiet, but yeah, they had if they can get that working with a smaller footprint, they get the whole ecosystem working with the surgical implants. Maybe that allows, it's kind of like helping an access issue a little bit, where more and more universities, it doesn't have to be the top tier universities. All the other ones, particularly in the United States, can get their hands on this, implant them in people. And then at the local level, kind of the organic level, you can have these doctor-patient interactions where they try to work these things out. And if they can get one kind of primitive application to work, like maybe once you get this implanted, it connects with one software program on your iPad, but it allows you to either, maybe it's just control the volume and a couple things like that on your TV. Because I think a lot of these people can still speak. So it's a weird problem, because voice control, with like an Alexa or something, might make more sense. As I've said, even eye tracking, if you can't speak, would make more sense than going into the brain. But if there's some little thing they can find which it kind of makes sense for, it means tons of humans are going to start. People, very very small select part of the population that are like paraplegic or whatever, are going to be able to get these implanted at their local sort of city hospital. Probably university center still, but but then the surgeons are going to want to be trained on this, especially if you're a neurosurgeon. It's just more interesting, especially if you're an academic neurosurgeon. And then and then there's going to be software that they work on that does something, like I said, something very specific. And then we're going to start getting more data, which is cool. And they're going to use the data mostly to improve the engineering, like the safety profile and the footprint and the signal profile of it. Again, not to solve the neural code problem, but at the university level, it's probably going to be like individual laboratories who are like, can we get our hands directly on the data coming off this thing? And can we continue to try to solve the neural code problem? Because that's the really long-term hard problem. And so I imagine it's mostly university laboratories that will be working on that problem. And that's another thing I think most people probably have a misperception of, that they are under the impression that Elon Musk and his company is going to be working on that. They're not going to work on that at all. And you can see it when you look at the job description. Nobody's going to try to, develop, harmonic neural networks or whatever, kind of like the grant I wrote for DARPA and stuff. I mean, it's going to be individual researchers who are just going to constantly try to make incremental progress on that, because and I guess that's one thing. That's usually what I used to do. I used to do like a little teaching session. So let me do one today, and I guess I wanted to do